Sunday school card that Mom kept, of all things. That was a long time ago, because I was 4 years old then. But I gave it away, didn't I? It was a story about the little girl that got sick, and they called for Jesus to come, and she was dead, and you know, she was resurrected, thanks be to God. So that's what they had in those old days. But this is very good, and it brings back memories to me, because this is the church that Grandma Scott and my mom and Aunt came to, and we were when I was a little girl. And so I'm going to read it, and maybe the message will be on. The present church building is in the third, in which Methodists have worship. The church in which they first met was a community church. It was built in 1882 on the east side of the square in Herndon. It is now used by the Nazarenes. And I have a history on that also, because, you know, I joke and say, you know, Jesus was Nazarene, so I am too. I'm normal. I did that to a preacher's son one time. I said, did you hear that song that Jesus was Nazarene? He said, yeah. Did you know that John was a Baptist? But that is the church of the Nazarene that sits on the side of the square, and there was a group of Christian men around here. The one that I have memory of most of from Roots, and who others told me his name was Ambrose Black. And he was one of them that helped to build that church up there. It was a union church. Anybody could go to that church. Everyone was welcome. And so I didn't realize that they had this down in here, that was the first church where all did worship there. Okay. On October the 1st in 1895, Mr. and Mrs. John Anvil sold and deeded for $60 a piece of ground where the present church now stands. A Mr. Brown, we don't have the first name, it might have been Mr. Emmett Brown, but we can't say that it was, gave about $500, and the rest of the money was raised by subscription. The church was to be called Brown's Chapel, but somehow the name was never used. Al Houston laid the foundation while much of the work was donated by members and friends. The building was completed in June of 1896, and the date of the dedication set. On that day, as the crowd gathered in the services, and it started, the supports under the floor gave way. Now this is all right, this is solid. Okay. All right. I didn't know that, because about Virginia gave me this, I was so thankful. And the floor fell in, no one was hurt, thank you God. But the dedication was postponed until the building could be repaired. This was done, and the church was dedicated in August 1896 with Reverend J.B. Kittle as pastor. And this is the church we're thinking of that in 1952 that the tornado come through and tore it up. This is one that we're talking about here. All right, and it goes on to say the church was later damaged by a windstorm. It sure was. It roared like a freight train when it went through here. And the present structure was started October the 4th in 1952. When the first shovelful of dirt was dug for the basement drain, right over in there, much of the work on the present church was also done by the members and friends of the community. It was dedicated in 1954 with Reverend Alan Vansel as pastor. And it said, then this is a little addition. Early in the church history, a ladies' aid was formed, but was soon abandoned, and a young workers club was started. Later, it became a missionary society, then Women's Society of Christian Service. This is what my mom belonged to, WSES, we always called it. And now it's called the United Methodist Women. And these people here are so kind to me that I worked with them with the United Methodist Women, and they treated me so good, and I appreciate them. And this is not easy to say goodbye to this church. Mom and Grandma and Aunt Sandy brought me here, and Mom and Aunt Sandy's funeral was, Mom's funeral was here, and Aunt Sandy and Grandma was down there. So anyway,
say that
That's all.
when we started probably 15 years ago, having church here, and Sunday school.
Yes, yes, we work back and forth, don't we? Yes. This is a good community, folks, good community, people love each other. We work together. I think that's all. Well, we will go on.
And yes, and I had people give me some ideas too about it, and so some of these ideas she may have already touched on.
Yes.
I think, I don't know if you told her the deed, Brett Carhoff looked up the deed for me and copied some things. It was on the 29th or the 30th of October 1895. 60 acres for $60 is what it was for. It said then in April 29th, 1911, the paper said that the Methodist Episcopal Church was built about 14 years ago. So the date was unknown, and I think you mentioned Reverend J.B. Kipple was in charge. The membership was about 40, it said. Reverend Lewis was pastor in 1911 then. Services were held on the first Sunday in the mornings and on the third Sunday in the evenings. They had a Sunday school of about 57 to 70 people, and some of you might know some of the trustees, so I listed those for you. It said the trustees were Floyd Gelbach, Homer Little, Frank Snow, and John Carter. Well then, in September 4th, 1952, that was the name of the date of the paper anyway, that's when the heavy winds moved the Hurdland Methodist Church 6 to 8 feet on its foundation, and the church windows were blown out. So, May 13th, 1954 is when the Hurdland Methodist Church hosted the 14th annual conference of the Kirksville district with more than 200 people in attendance. And they had hurried up the completion so that they could have the conference. Let's see. It says with the insurance of $3,000, $1,000 from the church board, and $4,000 in donations, the building materials and free labor, they have old building materials, the project was completed with no debt. So it didn't cost very much then, did it? And it says that Reverend Alan Densel was the pastor at that time. I think you mentioned that. And then July 15th, 1954 was when they had their dedication. And Bishop Ida Lee Holt of St. Louis was here. The church was full and chairs were placed outside. And they used a tape recorder somehow so that the message could be carried to those outside as well as those in the church. Bishop Holt was the president of the World Methodist Federation, besides being bishop of the churches of Eastern Missouri. And he was known to be one of the outstanding speakers among Protestant ministers in the world at that time. And he was right here at Hurdland. Then it also mentions the cornerstone laying was done by former pastor Reverend Vansel, and the present pastor was Reverend Sellers when they dedicated it. And it says a spot was left for a tin box in the stone where pictures and papers were placed. So I don't know if we'll get those out or not, but anyway, that's all that I have for the history. And I have some of the, there's a picture of the old church, and there was Brett looked up a couple things too, you know, they had a postcard or something, he said, of the old church and of the new church. Does anyone else have anything to add to the history?
I learned to run a wheelbarrow across Sibley Coil across here with cement in it, and that's hard to do.
I bet. So you helped with the building?
With the building base,
Yeah.
and we had the guys working around the foundation, bolting it and keeping the bubbles out and everything. A lot of work.
I'm sure, yes. I was looking at the pictures today and looking at the ramp. If anybody wants to go out by way of the ramp, I did have the door open tonight, so you could do that if you wanted. There's a couple of boards coming up, but it's still a really good ramp, and I saw a lot of you help build it. The pictures were out there, and people who have gone to be with the Lord already. Chuck was in there, and I know Dwayne was there, and several of you were there helping with the ramp.
Nancy,
Yes,
this is a very old time ago, but Chester Sykes, his funeral was here. And that was in 1989. And this was packed. This church was packed. Downstairs in the basement, A.G. Reimer and we got the chairs all down. But it was a beautiful day, and the yard was full.
so
So
they had
that's
people,
what I'm thinking of, yeah.
so they had people outside,
Oh,
inside,
yes.
in the basement.
Yeah, all everywhere.
Neat.
Yeah. I think there was like 800 that signed the book.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we're gonna do recollections, some more reminiscences and recollections after we sing Surely the Presence, which is on page 328 in your hymnal, or you may have it on your sheet. Surely the Presence, because I know that the Lord is in this place. Let's sing it through twice. It's a short. One more time. I did talk to Mrs. Dancel, who told us that we were having the service. I don't know how her health is, but I did let her know. Try to let most of the pastors that are living know. And Lowe's said that they just couldn't make it tonight, and so they said to give their regrets to you all, Virgil and Marcia. Well, let's talk about some of the memories that you have of the church here in Brashear.